If a deer entered a house and one locked the door in front of it, he is liable. If two people lock the door, they are exempt. If one person alone could not lock the door and two lock it, they are both liable. Reb Shimon, however, exempts them. If one person sat in the doorway but did not fully block it, and then a second person sat down and blocked it, the second one is liable. The first person sat in the doorway and blocked it completely, then the second person came and sat down alongside him. Even though the first person stood up and went away, the first person is liable and the second is exempt. To what is this case analogous? To one who locks his house to safeguard it, and a deer is found to be guarding therein. And the eight shiratim mentioned in the Torah, one who traps them and one who bruises them is liable. But other vermin crawling things, one who brushes them with bruises them is exempt. One who traps them because he needs them is liable. And if he does not need them, he is exempt. Beasts and birds that are in one's domain, one who traps them is exempt, and the one who bruises them is liable. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, just Ein osin hilmi b'Shabbos. Okay, so hilmi is a saltwater solution.
Okay.
So what do you make? It also usually has a little bit of oil in it, and it's usually used for preserving things, like sticking pickles in, putting cucumbers in to make them into pickles. Okay, but so you cannot make the salt water even because of the appearance that you're going to be making, that you're going to be pickling things.
Right.
Okay, אבל עושהו es מי המלח וטובל בהן פיתו. נושא נסוך התבשיל. So what he is allowed to do is make a small quantity of salt water. Okay, because you're allowed to do whatever you need for food. You want to make a
Right.
salad dressing. You want to do okay. That's okay. You tovel behin pito, and you can dip your bread into it and put it into some other dish. Okay, so it says the Tanakama, a small quantity is fine for personal use, but making a large quantity of salt water doesn't look good. Amar Rabbi Yossi v'hallohu hilmi bein meruba bein muat. He says, but it's the same thing, whether it's a lot or either it's allowed or it's not allowed. Says Rabbi Yossi, and he says, so what's his eitzah? Eluhein mei melach hamutarin. This is how you should make it if you want to make salt water on Shabbos. Nosen shemen batchila lesoch hamayim or lesoch hamelach. Change the order of making it. Put the oil in first, either into the water or into the salt, because the oil weakens the strength of the salt, and therefore anyone who sees this happening sees straight away that, oh, there's oil going in here. This is clearly not meant to be for long-term preservation.
But this is also a sign of Marasayan. We're talking about Marasayan here also.
Yeah, so, right. So the people
Right. Right.
that's the point, is the Maris Ayin, is that people
Right.
putting the oil in first know that this is not going to be for preserving things. And this, by the way, is why when Pesach falls on Shabbos, you can't make the salt water on Shabbos.
Right. Right.
You can make it on Yom Tov. It's not a problem because that's not an issur on it's one of the allowed malachas on Yom Tov. Uh,
If you lived in the five towns, you could buy your salt water before.
yes,
There's a
yes.
store that sells salt water. Right.
I saw that. That's just amazing. Amazing how infantilized people get.
That's as bad
Anyway,
as us getting that little bread. That little bread.
yeah. Okay. Ein ochlin ezovion b'Shabbos. Ezovion is a type of hyssop,
A
um,
Greek
which
has
Greek
Greek
hyssop.
hyssop.
Okay.
Right.
So why can't you eat this on Shabbos? Because lefi she'eno machal briim, because this is not something that healthy people normally eat. Now, just to take a step back as a reminder, um, there's an Issa Drabanan to take medications on Shabbos,
Right.
because people used to make their own medications and it
All
involved
right.
crushing things often. So because the crushing is a malacha, there's a concern that if people get used to taking medications, they'll start crushing things for medications as well on Shabbos. Okay, so we just said, okay, you're not allowed to take medications for anything that's not serious. As soon as as soon as somebody is a chole, no, we're
Mhm.
not talking about chole she'ein bo sakana. Chole she'es bo sakana, you've got all mitzvahs. You can break Shabbos for them altogether. But even a chole she'ein bo sakana, somebody who's actually sick, who's bedridden, you can give them any medication they need. But we're talking about somebody who's got a
A
bit of a
little,
headache. Somebody
little
who's
headache. So right. Right.
yeah. Okay. All right. So this azavion is not normal food. Aval ochel hu es your ezer. So your ezer is another kind of herb which has a dual use, which people eat normally, but it's also got health benefits. Shose abuvro, and he has this, and it's not really important. It's a kind of abuvro is another kind of a plant that you soak in water. It's not important exactly what it is, but the point being that it's dual use. That people eat it normally. So if somebody sees you eating it, they're not going to assume that this is for health purposes that you're eating it. You're eating it just because the people eat it. Kol ha'ochlin ochel adam for any kind of food, like anything that's normally a food, a person is allowed to eat, even if they have the intention of making themselves better. Okay, v'chol hamashkin shosa. Chutz mi made the kalim v'kos ikarim. But what you can't drink is palm water and kos ikarim is something out of roots,
Right,
um,
potion of roots.
a portion of roots. Okay, okay. What are these things? These things are good for somebody who's got jaundice.
Yeah,
And if you see somebody you see somebody's got jaundice, you can tell that they've got jaundice. They look yellow. So if you see
yeah,
it,
I know.
although again, that's an interesting thing because jaundice is actually a chole. So you should be allowed to
Right,
take.
right, because babies that have jaundice, they don't do the bris. They
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, it's interesting. That just struck me now that why isn't he considered a chole? It might just be sort of a slight off coloring where he's perfectly healthy, but this cures his coloring. Aval shosehu made the kalim nitzma'o, but a normal person who doesn't show any signs of yellowness is allowed to drink this made the kalim for just because he's thirsty.
Right.
B'stach shemen ikarin shelo lirpua, and he can also put on this oil this of the roots, which is, as long as it's not for a refuah, if it's not clear that he's doing it for a refuah. Okay. Choshesh b'shinav. So what if somebody has a toothache? So apparently the home remedy for toothache is to rinse your mouth with vinegar. I've never tried it,
I never tried it. I want to try it.
but that's I mean, if you think about it, vinegar is an acid, so he's saying so he maybe the toothache is caused by some kind of alkaline in his mouth. I don't know.
Oh,
That's
the thought. It's funny that next one says he can dip his bread in vinegar.
right. He says
So,
so you're not allowed to rinse your mouth with vinegar because that's like nobody rinses their mouth with vinegar just because it's fun. Okay. Aval metabel hukadarko. What he is allowed to do if he wants to get vinegar into his mouth is he can dip his bread in vinegar and stick it in his mouth and chew the bread and move it around his mouth and wipe off the vinegar on his teeth or something like that. And that's fine. Imni strape, and if it feels better, shalom al Yisrael. Hachoshesh b'mosnav, he feels a pain in his loins. Lo yasoch yayin the chometz. He's not allowed to anoint himself with wine or with vinegar. Aval sachu es hashemen, but he can put on oil if that's going to make him feel better. Below shemen vered, but not rose oil. Why? Why not rose oil? Because that's very expensive, right? And um, and therefore people people see that if well, rose oil is not something that you'd normally anoint. It's expensive um, and that's clearly he's doing it for a refuah. But says the Mishnah, B'nai Melachim sachin shemen vered al makosein. But if you're, the princes, the rich people, can use this shekain darkam lasoch b'chol because this is what they normally do. The rich people use expensive oils and anoint themselves, so there's no difference doing it on Shabbos, even if it's for refuah. Rabbi Shimon Omer Kol Yisrael B'nai Melachim Hem. He says, I treat all Jews as if they are B'nai Melachim, and therefore it should be mutar for everyone. And there's a bit of a machlokes as to whether the halacha follows Rabbi Shimon or not, but if it comes to a shaila, ask your Rav.
next prince I run into.
Yeah. Yud Gimel.
Okay. Yud Gimel. One who takes out either with his right hand or his left hand in his bosom or on his shoulder is liable, for such was the method of carrying used by the sons of Kehatz. If he carried backhandedly with his foot in his mouth, with his elbow, with his ear, in his hair, in his money belt, with its opening hanging downward between his money belt and his shirt, in the hem of his shirt, in his shoe or his sandal, he is exempt, because he did not carry out in the manner of those who carry things out. One who intended to take out an object in front of him and it slipped behind him is exempt. Behind him and it shifted to the front of him is liable. Indeed, they said a woman girded with an apron, whether in front of her or behind her, is liable, for it is common for it to shift around. Rabbi Yehuda says also letter carriers. One who takes a loaf of bread to a public domain is liable. If two people took it out, they're both exempt. If one could not take it out by himself and two took it out, they are both liable. Reb Shimon, however, exempts them. One who takes out foodstuff less than the prescribed amount in a vessel is exempt even for the vessel, because the vessel is secondary to it. A live person on a bed is exempt even for the bed is secondary to him. A corpse on a bed is liable. Similarly, one who takes out a part of a corpse the size of an olive, or a piece of an animal's carcass the size of an olive, or a piece of dead sherrits the size of a lentil, he is liable. Reb Shimon, however, exempts him. Okay. And we are on to Purim. Okay. Aleph Yud. And these bring in recite from Shavuos until Sukkot, from the seven species, from the fruits of the mountains, from the dates of the valleys, and the oil olives from beyond the Yarden. Rabbi Yossi Agili says one does not bring Makorim from beyond the Yarden because it is not of land flowing with milk and honey. He who buys 3 trees and his fellows brings and recites. Reb Maya says even 2. He who bought a tree and its ground brings and recites. So Rabbi Huda says tenants and lessees also bring and recite. For Truma and Bikurim, one is liable to death and the added 5th. They are forbidden to non-priest and the property of the priest. They are voided in 100 to 1 and 1, and they require the washing of the hands at sundown. These apply to Truma and Bikurim, but not to Misa. Okay.
And
we
Shemos.
Okay. The Gimel Aleph. One may not separate truma from clean for unclean. If he did separate his truma, is truma. In truth, they said, if part of a cake or pressed figs become unclean, he separates truma from its clean part for its unclean part. So, too, a bundle of vegetables or a heap. If there were 2 cakes, 2 bundles, or 2 heaps, one unclean and one clean, he may separate from one for the other. The Eliezer says, one may separate truma from the clean for the unclean. One may not separate truma from unclean for clean, and if he did separate an error, his truma is truma. If intentionally he has affected nothing. So too, if the son of a Levite who has Tedvil Misa continues separating for it, if an error, what he did is done, and if intentionally he has affected nothing. Now Yehuda says if he knew at the outset, then even if he did it in error, he has affected nothing. If one immerses vessels on Shabbos, and in error he may, if in error he may use them, if willfully he may not use them. If one tithe or cooks on Shabbos in error, and he may eat. If one willfully, he may not eat. If one planted on Shabbos, but in error he may maintain it. If willfully, he must uproot it. But in the 7th year, whether in error or willfully, he must uproot it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Taros.
Vav base. There are 4 uncertainties in which Rabbi Shua rules. The certainty is Tameh, and the sages rule Tahor. How so? A Tameh person is standing, and a Tahor person is passing by, or a Tahor person is standing, and a Tameh person passes by. I'm sorry. And a Tameh person is passing by. A Tameh object is in a private domain, and a Tahor object is in a public domain. A Tahor object is in a private domain, and a Tameh object is in a public domain. There is doubt whether one entity touched the other entity or did not touch it, for there is a doubt whether it shared a roof with the other entity and it did not share a roof with it, or there is a doubt whether it caused the other entity to move and did not cause it to move. Rabbi Shua rules the Tahor entity Tameh, but the sages rule it Tahor. Regarding a tree which was standing in the public domain and an object of tumah was in it, if one climbed to the top of the tree and there is a doubt whether he touched the Tameh object or did not touch it, the uncertainty is ruled Tameh. If one inserted his hand to a hole that has an object of tumah in it, and there is a doubt whether he touched the Tameh object or did not touch it, the uncertainty is ruled Tameh. Regarding a store which was Tameh and open to the public, and there is a doubt whether he entered the store or did not enter it, the uncertainty is ruled Tahor. If there is a doubt whether he touched the tummy item there or did not touch it, the uncertainty is ruled tahor. Regarding two stores, one of which is tummy and one of which is tahor, and one entered one of them, and there is doubt whether he went to the tummy one or the tahor one, the uncertainty is ruled tummy. As many uncertainties and uncertainties of uncertainties that you can add in a private domain, the uncertainty is ruled tummy. But in the public domain, the uncertainty is ruled tahor. How so? If one entered an alleyway and there was an object of tumor in the courtyard, and there was a doubt whether he entered the courtyard or did not enter, or there was an object of tumor in a house, and there was a doubt whether he entered the house or did not enter it, then even if he entered, there is doubt whether the object of tumor was there or was not there. And even if it was there, there is doubt whether it consisted of a minimum measure for tumor, or it did not consist of the minimum measure, or and did even if it did consist of the minimum measure, there is doubt whether it is an object of tumor or is an object of tahara. And even if an item of tumah, there is doubt whether he touched it or did not touch it, the uncertainty is ruled tameh. If Elazar says that uncertainty regarding entry is ruled tahor, and uncertainty regarding contact with tumah is tameh. If one, that was it. That was it, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And Menachos. Okay. Zion Hay. One who says, I take upon myself to bring a Todah offering, must bring it, and it's bread from that which is unconsecrated. If he said a Todah offering from which is unconsecrated and it's bread from Misa, he must bring his bread from that which is unconsecrated. If he said a Todah offering from Misa and it's bread from that which is unconsecrated, let him bring it. Both the Todah offering and its bread from Misa, let him bring it. However, he may not bring from wheat of Misa Sheni, only from my money of Misa Sheni. From where is it known that one says, I take upon myself to bring a Todah offering, must bring that for which is unconsecrated, because it is stated, and you shall sacrifice the Pesach offering to Hashem your God for the flocks and cattle. But does not the Pesach offering come only from sheep or goats? If so, why does it say flocks and cattle? In order to compare all that comes from cattle and flocks to the Pesach offering. Just as the Pesach offering, which comes in obligation, comes only from that which is unconsecrated, so anything which comes as an obligation may be brought only from that which is unconsecrated. Therefore, if one says, I take upon myself to bring a Todah offering, or I take upon myself to bring a Shlomit offering, since they come as an obligation, they may come only from that which is unconsecrated. However, libations in all cases come from only that which is unconsecrated. All communal and individual offerings may come either from the land of Israel or from outside the land, either from the new crop or from the old, except for the Omer and Shtei Alechem, which may come only from the new crop and from the land. All of them come only from choice produce. What is the choice? Mitmas and Mislakina are preferred of fine flour. Kafirayim in the valley is second to them, and all lands are valid, but they would not bring from these. We do not bring either from a fertilized field or an irrigated field. That was it?
Yeah, that is it.
Sorry. Okay.
Nice.
And
It's cool.
The Durham. Okay. Yud base. If the father dies, the sole right does not fall to the husband. If the husband dies, the sole right falls to the father. In this manner, the power of the father suppresses that of the husband. In another manner, the power of the husband suppresses that of the father. For a husband can revoke his wife's nedarim even after she has been a begaris, while the father cannot revoke her nedarim once she became a begaris. If she vowed while she was betrothed and was divorced on the same day and betrothed again on the same day, even to 100 men, her father and her current husband revoke her nedarim. This is the general rule. As long as she had never entered into a state of independence for even 1 hour, her father and her current husband revoke her nedarim. It was the custom of scholars that as long as one's daughter had not left him, he would say to her, all the nedarim which you have made in my house are revoked. And so too the husband, before she would come under his authority, would say to her, all the nedarim which you have made prior to coming under my authority are revoked. So once she comes under his authority, he cannot revoke them.
Okay, and we're done.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Feels good to be back.
Yeah.
Did you get a good night's sleep?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. All good.
Have a great day. Enjoy. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.